Disability is often overlooked in sex education and the sexual wellness industry, but disabled people have as much a right to pleasure and sexual self-expression as the next person. The intersection between disability and sex and relationships is a huge topic, but we are going to tackle just one part of that in this video, and that is accessible sex toys. I am very excited. I've brought a bunch of toys from home to demonstrate and show you a bunch of examples, but what makes a sex toy accessible or inaccessible? We're going to be talking about everything from the buttons to the shapes to the packaging. And of course, disabled people are not a monolith. Every disability is different, and even people with the same disability will have different experiences. So a toy that may be accessible to one person in a certain way may be completely inaccessible to somebody else. But we're going to be talking about loads of different aspects of sex toys, what makes them accessible, what doesn't, doing a little bit of a show and tell. And thank you so much to my producer Mia, who helped gather a bunch of this information and toys. I'm very excited. Let's dive in. First up, when thinking about accessibility, is how you use a sex toy. In order to know how to use it, you need clear and accessible instructions. So this can include things like using large fonts, picking certain colors, using Braille, and having QR codes so people can access the instructions in different formats like audio or video. Easy to find and use buttons. This can be for people who have a visual impairment or poor dexterity or a whole host of other different things. I also personally love a big, easy, clear button because I'm not always looking at the toy when I'm using it. For example, the Ziggy has Braille buttons and the Doxy one has these 3 big, large buttons. And then these are some from my collection just to show you the different kinds of buttons that you can find out there. These ones are slightly more raised, which I think is good. This is like a remote control one, and you can kind of like feel the different things. This is my favorite sex toy, but I do not like the buttons on it. I just find it really difficult to figure out where they are when I'm not looking at the toy. And then this one has really, really tiny, difficult to find buttons on it. So the button situation with sex toys is pretty varied at the moment, but just the bigger, more obvious, easy to press, the better. Multiple settings with a big variety for sensation. Now, this is fun, but it's not just for fun. Having different settings can help people find the stimulation that is right for them. Some people may have higher or lower sensitivity due to disability or medication that they've taken or any surgery that they may have had. A big powerful wand could be really helpful for somebody with reduced sensation. Next up, malleable sex toys. So these are ones that can be bent and moved into different positions to make them easier to use. Adam and Eve have a bendable joystick, and then these are 2 that I have. This is the Pico Bong Transformer, and look at that. These 2 ends both vibrate, and I mean, you can get real creative with this. And then this one is the Mystery Vibe Crescendo, and it can kind of like bend in different ways too. So some people may have limited or no hand use or chronic pain in their hands and fingers, or limited pelvic use or chronic pain in the pelvis. And so these are some toys that can assist people who find it difficult to hold a toy for solo or partnered use. So easier to hold shaped toys. There is honestly so much out there, and everybody's individual situation will find different things that work for them. But these are 2 that I have that have things about them that would make them easier to hold. This one has a really long handle, so you don't have to like reach all the way down, and you can keep your hand like close up to your body if you don't have that kind of movement. And then this one, this is Prudence. She has a hook that can be just put on a finger and then used in that way instead of having to like grip if gripping is something that you can't do. Toys that can be positioned onto other parts of the body. So if you can't use your hands or you have restricted pelvic movement, there are some options out there. If you're into kink and a bit of flogging maybe, then there is the Kinkability Flogger, which is a flogger that is attached to a mitt that you can attach to a part of your body, and so you can still flog someone if you so wish, consensually. And then there is this thigh strap-on. So it is a harness that can go around your thigh or a different part of your body, and then you can put a dildo in the harness and your partner can ride that. What fun. And then there is the whole world of completely hands-free toys. These are ones that you could just sit on or place or have placed in your underwear. There's the Moxie Panty vibrator that goes in your knickers and sits up against the clitoris. The RoboFuck thrusting machine, what a name, looks like a very fascinating contraption, and it can be used with a dildo or a penis sleeve. And then another great name is the Humpus sex machine. And this, again, there's a version for people with penises and for people with vaginas. And essentially it is like worn around your waist as a belt, and then it fucks you, or you fuck it, whatever way around. You can get hands-free prostate massages. And the thing with anal toys as well is when it's got that flared base, please, you do not want your anus to suck up a toy. With that flared base, often toys will like stay in place anyway, so you can like do some other fun stuff whilst you got something up your bum. What fun, if that's what you're into. Dame have a hands-free vulva vibrator called Eva, and this is one that I've always wanted to try. It's got these like little arms, and the intention is that they're meant to like sit in the folds of your labia so it like stays put and up against your clitoris. Has anyone tried this? Does it work? There is the Cute Little Fuckers Stasi vibrator, which is like in a starfish shape, and you can use it for penetration or just to grind on. And speaking of grinding, one that I own, this is the Ruby Glow, and it's one that you can just place on your chair and sit on it and grind on it. And so it's got like the clitoris, the front bit of vibration, and then the back bit, and what fun. There's a newer version of this as well, which I have at home and I'm yet to try, but this, great. Hot Octopus are also a great company when it comes to accessibility. This toy has been designed with disabled people in mind, and this is the like controller wristwatch thing that it comes with. And then there is the Ziggy hands-free vibrator, which if you watched the video that I did on my other channel where I reacted to TikToks that people had tagged me in, one of them was a video like advertising this toy, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? It looks amazing. You can hump it, you can put it in your pants, you can also like put it in between you and your partner. There seems to be so much versatility with this toy. If you've tried it, please let me know. I'm so curious. As seen on TikTok. And then our next category is hands-free, which you can attach to something else. So this is a way to make current toys that you may already have more accessible. You can get a wand harness, and so you can strap this harness to a pillow or something and then put your favorite sex toy in it and go to town. This isn't a sex toy, but it's a sex toy accessory. But we found this hands-free lube dispenser. I am obsessed with this product. However, I do have some questions. So I do love the idea of this product. I love the idea of just being able to like wave your hand and then the lube comes down like it's like one of those auto soap machines in a public toilet. But it is very expensive, and also the refill bottles for it are very small and fiddly, so that just like feels kind of wasteful. And even though super easy in the moment to get access to lube, some people may still need help with like restocking the machine itself. But I'm curious. I'm very intrigued by this lube dispenser. And then there is the Bumpin' Joystick. And this is a toy that is being created by disability and sex activist Andrew Gerzer. I've had him on the podcast. He is amazing. You can currently help support the making of this toy by putting down a deposit to maybe buy one in the future to help fund the process of making it. But they have a bunch of prototypes and it looks so cool. So it's like really big. It's got like a cushion part that you can like hug and hold and like grind up against. And then the other part at the bottom is where you can like put toys in. So you could put dildos in or vibrators in, or you could put penis sleeves in. It looks really, really cool, and you can get into all sorts of different positions with it, which can help people with different body types and needs. There are toys which you can attach to your fingers, and this can make solo or partnered stimulation much easier. This is another toy from Dame called the Fin Vibrator, and it attaches to your finger so it can make it much easier and you don't need to grip anything. Accessible kink toys. So we talked about that kinkability flogger, but kink in general can potentially be something that is a bit fiddly, like when it comes to rope or tying people up. But there are lots of different kinds of cuffs that you can get, so you can still practice bondage and tying up without the fiddliness of being able to use rope. And then there's also a thing called bondage tape. And bondage tape looks like colourful duct tape, but it only sticks to itself. So you can get really creative with this in terms of tying people up, but also adapting your sex toys and using it to tie your sex toys to each other or to things like the bed or a pillow or whatever it is. Toys that assist with erectile dysfunction. Adam and Eve have a hollow strap-on, so the penis goes in, and so someone with erectile dysfunction can still penetrate their partner if that's what they want. The Ziggy, again, can help with this. Also, the Hot Octopus Pulse works really well for people with erectile dysfunction because it can be used on a flaccid penis, and you don't need to get or maintain an erection to use it. And then there is a whole host of toys that can help control penetration. So if you are the one being penetrated and maybe you experience pain, or you have vaginismus, or you have endometriosis, or anything going on with your pelvic floor, the O-Nut is a great option. This is like 4 different things, and you can put these on a penis or on a toy, and essentially what it does is it helps control the depth. So depending on how many of these that you use, it then would stop the penetration at a point, and you can control that. And then also things that have been used to help people with vaginismus is dilators, and some of the bigger dilators, so they like go up in size, but some of the bigger ones may have a hole in the middle, and so you can insert a bullet vibrator in there as well, so you could have a little bit of vibration as well if you want. And then there is the whole world of remote controlled toys. So this can be really useful for solo play. If you can't reach buttons on the toy, you can have the remote control there with you, or for some partnered fun as well. Satisfyer have a whole bunch of toys that have remote controls. The Mystery Vibe has a app that you can control this toy through. And then there's loads of stuff like this. This is one from Rocks Off that has a remote control with some big buttons on it as well. And then also in the almost sci-fi world of sex science. In 2018, a researcher from the University of Sao Paulo presented some findings on the Neuro dildo. This is a sex toy prototype that is remotely controlled by the wearer's brainwaves. Guys, what? And there's other research that is like working on some sort of spine implants that would allow people to orgasm at the push of a button. What is this sci-fi sex world that we're living in? Who knows what we're going to see in the future. And then also remote controlled are the toys in the Quest range, which is a new accessible sex toy range that is coming out soon with Rocks Off and Enhance the UK, who are a disability charity. And I invited Jenny Williams, who is the founder and CEO of Enhance the UK, to tell us a little bit more about the charity and about these sex toys.
Hello, my name is Jenny Williams and I am the founder and the CEO of the charity Enhance the UK. I set Enhance the UK up about 15 years ago now, and the reason I set Enhance up is because I always worked in care homes all my working life, and a lot of time if you're in care you have something called a care plan. And when I was looking in people's care plans, I realised there was absolutely nothing about people's sexual needs, and we use the term sexual expression quite a lot now. There was nothing about that. It was completely dehumanizing people, and that concerned me, and I wanted to do something about it. So I set the charity up and we run a campaign called Undressing Disability, and of course it started to unravel. There's so much more than just people in care homes and the lack of support people get. You take it all the way back to looking at sex education and how it really isn't inclusive and isn't representative at all of all the different kinds of bodies that we have as humans. It really is about looking at people who have always had disabilities, and really the lack of sex education a lot of people have, the lack of support that people have, whether they're living at home with their parents and they're really infantilized, or they're still living in care and not being able to even access anything to do with sex or any conversation around that, because a lot of care homes have child locks on their Wi-Fi and on their internet. And also if people acquire their disability. Now we know that 83% of disabled people are not born disabled. That's a huge amount of us that are born non-disabled and then something happens to us. It may be an illness or it may be an accident. And then we've got to learn to grieve the old bodies that we used to have and come to terms with the new bodies that we now have. So we look at educating staff, educating disabled people as well. How do we have those conversations? How do we even start talking about this topic? One of the big things is looking at values over facts. A lot of the time people bring their values to the conversations, their thoughts, their beliefs, their religious beliefs maybe, but actually we always should be looking at facts. So it's about disciplining ourselves and giving ourselves as non-disabled people the tools and the ability to support disabled people, and the tools as disabled people to be able to have the confidence to say, these are my rights, this is what I want, this is important to me, I need to be seen and I need to be heard.
So I was involved in one of the very, very early stages of the Quest range being made. Roxoff and Enhance did a focus group with a bunch of different disabled people to talk about what accessibility needs they had when it came to sex toys. So I wanted Jenny to talk a little bit more about the process of making this range and its accessibility features.
5 years ago, a company came to us called Roxoff and they said, we make sex toys, we manufacture sex toys, and we want to make some inclusive sex toys. And I said, okay, great. Let's have that conversation. What does an inclusive sex toy range look like to you? Because I'm going to tell you what it looks like to me. I want somebody to be able to open that packaging with their teeth if they haven't got the dexterity to open unboxing with loads of cellophane around it. I want somebody to be able to read all the information if they have got visual impairment and they can use a QR code. I want that information to be translated into British Sign Language if that's the first language for somebody. I want somebody to be able to shake that toy out and not have it all wrapped up in loads of bandages and extra packaging if they need to. And then once they've got in the toy, I want them to be able to actually use it if they've got poor dexterity or their grip is really difficult. So Roxoff, to their credit, said, we've never even thought about any of that. Okay, let's look at it. So that's what we've come up with, an inclusive sex toy called Quest. And we are on a quest to change what inclusive sex toys look like, because masturbating should be available to everybody, not just non-disabled people who are able to do it. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of some designs that we came up with. These are really large buttons, so maybe you've got really poor dexterity, maybe you've got arthritis, maybe you're not, maybe you've had a stroke, a number of things, and you can place the toy, or somebody else can place the toy down, and you can use the buttons maybe on your nose, on your shoulder, on your head or your chin, anywhere that you're able to move. I've got so many prototypes in here, but this is another example. Maybe that you've got poor dexterity, maybe you've got shorter limbs, maybe you're obese, maybe you're pregnant and you still want to be able to, and you can't reach down and be able to have clitoral stimulation or vaginal stimulation. So this is the Flexi Vibe, which is extra long. And again, this is just a sample because the range is coming out soon. We are bringing out the sex toy range. Hopefully we've looked at nearly all the aspects that you can think of about what it means to be an inclusive sex toy range. But you know what? We're still learning, and we want to hear your thoughts, and we want to hear your views, and we want to hear your opinions. So come and let us know.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I will leave links in the description to where you can find out more about Enhance the UK, and the Quest range is going to be coming out in early June. These are just a few more of the toys in that range, and they each have big old buttons and they come with remote controls. And here is some of the packaging. It's got a QR code, it's got Braille, and I'm going to give this opening it with my teeth a good go. So here, there we go, and then should be able to just shake it out. There we go. More instructions with QR code and big font. And then, oh, as you can see, it's actually super easy to get into the toy. So, you know, I could probably still do this with my mouth if I wanted to. We're going to talk about chargers in a second, but it's one of those long and magnetic ones. There we go. I've got my remote control and I got my toy. It's a vibrator. It's got a vibrator element. And then I'm guessing that this is like an adjustable cock ring. It's called Affinity. We've talked about a lot of different features here, and one, of course, goes without saying, and that is body-safe materials for all toys. So that's how you use a sex toy. But before you even get to that stage, what about how you get a sex toy. So as we heard Jenny talk about with the Quest range, clear and easy to open packaging is really important. So things that don't require scissors, they're not taped up really tight, and only using as much packaging as necessary. And of course, discreet packaging, as many disabled people might live with family or a carer. An accessible website. How are people going to actually order the toy? Does the website work with screen readers? What about the fonts and the colors? Is there audio? Is there video? And then what about how you maintain a sex toy? Because sex toys can be quite expensive. They are an investment, and so you want them to last. Accessible charging. So how long is that battery going to last before you need to recharge it? And how do you recharge it? Is it actually rechargeable, or do you have to use fiddly batteries? As much as I love the Ruby Glow and the grinding on it, it does require batteries. However, the newest edition, the Ruby Glow Blush, has a rechargeable base. So it has its own little docking station and you can charge that. A lot of toys now have wireless charging, and many toys, including the Quest range, have the magnetic ones. So you don't need to worry about getting it in, it just magnetically recharges. And then also longer charging cables can be really useful as well. The Dame Eva comes with a 140 centimeter long cable. That is a long cable. And then easy to clean. Don't forget to clean your sex toys, people. Maybe they could make one of those dispensary things, but for sex toy cleaner as well. Don't know exactly how that would work or if it would be useful. And then I also wanted to talk about some other accessibility bits and bobs. The miscellaneous section, shall we? So another thing to think about when it comes to accessible sex toys is privacy. Like I said, many disabled people might live with carers or family who care for them, and so toys that have a really low, discreet sound. I mean, we all love a quiet sex toy, but it can be especially useful depending on your living circumstances. And then also waterproof toys, because for some people, maybe when they're bathing or showering might be the only privacy that they get. And so being able to get a bit frisky in the shower can be a good time. And then I also wanted to share some other accessible sex toys, some that are a bit more furniture based. There's this one called the Intimate Rider sex chair, and this was designed by somebody who has quadriplegia. It is very expensive, but sometimes that is the case for these specifically special designed thing for specific disabilities. I also wanted to mention the Liberator wedges and ramps. These can be used to adjust and support and hold bodies in different positions. These can be great if you have limited mobility or you need support getting and staying in a more comfortable position. And then some other things that can potentially help people get into some different positions are sex slings or swings and this sex stool / chair. And I just wanted to say as well, many of these things are not only sex aids, but sex enhancers. They can help with things like creativity, trying new positions, feeling new and different sensations. And oftentimes when you're designing products with disability in mind and accessibility at the forefront, you end up making a better product for everyone. So thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of these toys in the comments if you are somebody who is disabled and you have certain accessibility needs when it comes to your sex toys, and maybe some of the creative work